6 p.m. here in Cairo. Time for the English news and bulletin. Coming up will be the headlines in a moment, so stay with us. Chinese President Xi Jinping meets Prime Minister Madbouli in Tianjin. 236 Palestinians killed, scored injuries in Israeli occupation airstrikes in Gaza Strip. And Zelensky wants higher-level talks on security guarantees next week. Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed China's support to Egyptian efforts to maintain its sovereignty and showed appreciation to Egypt's strong stance backing one China policy. Chinese President asserted his continuous support to continuing work of Chinese companies in Egyptian market and expanding their investment. He also backed plans of development and joint production in fields of renewable energy, electric cars, and components of energy projects. This came during a meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Madbouli at a hosting palace in the city of Tianjin on a number of issues and files of mutual concern on the sidelines of Madbouli's participation in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit on Sunday and Monday on behalf of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli stressed that state provides incentives for foreign and local investors and is working on attracting more direct investment. This came during his meeting with head of Chinese petrochemicals company Mo Danji in Beijing on the sidelines of his participation in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit and on behalf of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Madbouli stressed that President Sisi is following up on Chinese companies' investments in Egypt and hopes that it carries out its projects to produce soda ash as soon as possible. He also expressed his appreciation to the company's determination to expand its investments in Egypt in the upcoming period. And Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli extended an invitation to Chinese companies to invest in Egypt's electric vehicle industry, given that China is the largest producer of electric cars. The Prime Minister's remarks came during his meeting with Chai Kui, a member of Standing Committee of the Political Bureau of the Communist Party of China's Central Committee. In the meeting, the Prime Minister expressed a desire for cooperation between the two sides on the fields of desalination and production of components for solar, the wind energy projects. Madbouli also reaffirmed Egypt's full support for China's unity and its sovereignty over its territories, adding that China is Egypt's largest trading partner in terms of trade volume and expressed his appreciation to encourage more Chinese companies to invest in Egypt. The Prime Minister expressed his pride in the comprehensive strategic partnership between Egypt and China, as well as the mutual support between the two countries on the various issues, including economic cooperation and joint investment. Madbouli remarks came at a meeting with Jiang Jin, chairman of Tabia, a company specialized in energy engineering and manufacturing of electrical equipment. The meeting took place on the sidelines of his participation in the summit on behalf of President al-Sisi held in Tianjin, China. During the meeting, the Prime Minister said that Egypt gives special priority to new renewable energy projects as well as the localization of industries related to renewable energy components, especially solar and wind energy. Madbouli also expressed the government's interest in enhancing coordination and cooperation in the Tabia and benefiting from the company's expertise and capabilities line with Egypt's vision to increase the share of renewable energy in the national energy mix to 42% by 2030. And upon directives by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to support the escalation of affairs in the region, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Immigration and Egyptian expatriates, Dr. Badr Abdulati, he engaged in a series of high-level diplomatic contacts over the past days. Egypt's top diplomat contacts included European counterparts, E3, Iranian and American top officials, as well as Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IEA. And the Foreign Minister Abdulati also contacts aimed at creating an appropriate atmosphere and pave the way for resumption of negotiations between Iran and the US on Tehran's nuclear file. Also focused on bridging the gaps between concerned parties to reach a sustainable agreement that address interests of all parties and help de-escalate the situation, the region, mutual confidence, and achieve regional security and stability. Foreign Minister Dr. Badr Abdulati received on Saturday a phone call from his Latvian counterpart, Bijabija Braz. During the call, Foreign Minister Abdulati stressed the need for the international community and the European Union to assume its responsibilities to stop the violations committed by Israel against civilians and push Israel to stop expanding its military operations and stop using starvation as a weapon. The Foreign Minister also asserted the importance of taking a specific and effective European step to push Israel towards responding to ceasefire proposal. The call also focused on means of boosting bilateral relations on the fields of economic, trade, and investment. Meanwhile, in a new massacre, 12 Palestinians were killed and scores were injured, most of them children, in Israeli occupation airstrike on a bakery in al-Nasr area near Abu Bakr Mosque in Gaza City. Earlier, occupation military carried out a series of air raids and shelling the targeted Nusayrat camp in central Gaza Strip. Palestinian sources reported the scores of missiles and shells hit in Zaytun neighborhood east of Gaza City after fierce clashes between Palestinian factions and Israeli occupation forces along 2 hours. From eastern side of the Jabalia camp, field confrontations were renewed, coinciding with ground Israeli progress. The death toll of Israeli aggression rose since the dawn to over 36 martyrs as occupation aviation targeted locations in Gaza City, Deir el-Ballah in central Gaza Strip. And Central Director of Health Ministry in Gaza Strip, Munir al-Barash Saud, said that there are 40,000 wounded Palestinian children since the beginning of the war in Gaza Strip. He also added that every 6 children are treated on one bed as a result of the destruction of the health system. He also pointed out that over 150 medicine warehouses were destroyed. In another context, WHO spokesperson Christian Landmer, he stressed that the destroyed infrastructure of water, sanitary, drainage, and deficiency of medicine increased new disease and pandemics in the Gaza Strip. And the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, announced on Saturday that its warehouses in Egypt and Jordan are stoked, ready to fill around 6,000 trucks of humanitarian aid to Gaza. The agency said that its warehouses are prepared to dispatch thousands of trucks immediately after if Israel allows the humanitarian convoys to enter, emphasizing the urgent need to permit life-saving supplies via road. UNRWA stressed that it has the system to place in place to distribute aid safely and at scale. Meanwhile, North Sinai Governor Khalid Migawi received a U.S. Senate delegation to carry out an inspection visit to Rafah border crossing and logistics warehouses of Red Crescent in Al Arish to be briefed on Egyptian humanitarian aid offered to Gaza Strip. This comes as Egypt continued its offers to access more humanitarian and relief aid to the Gaza Strip. Among the directives of Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. The convoys are part of Zaid al-Izza initiative that has been launched by the Egyptian Red Crescent since July. The 8 trucks carry tons of essential food, including baby formula, wheat and rice, besides tons of medical and relief supplies and personal care products. And Hamas Palestinian resistance warned Israel that it is planning offensive to conquer Gaza City would subject hostages in area to the same risks as militant groups' fighters. Hamas said in a statement that they will take care of the prisoners the best way they can, and they will be with their fighters in the combat and confrontation zones subjected to the same risks and the same living conditions. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas' office said it was astonished by the U.S. visa decision and said it violated the UN headquarters agreement. For his part, Nabila Bourdina, a spokesperson for Abbas, called on Saturday for Washington to reconsider the decision as it contradicts international law, especially the headquarters agreement between UN and the U.S., which prohibits preventing any delegation from access. This came as the United States said would not allow Palestinian president to travel to New York next month for a United Nations gathering of world leaders, where several U.S. allies are set to recognize Palestine as a state. Also in the same context, several European foreign ministers arriving at a European Union meeting in Copenhagen on Saturday criticized the U.S. decision for not allowing the Palestinian president to travel to New York next month for a United Nations gathering of world leaders, where several U.S. allies are set to recognize Palestine as a state. The French Foreign Minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, said UN General Assembly cannot be subject to any restriction on access. The Irish Foreign Minister, Simon Harris, said the EU should protest the decision in the strongest possible terms. While Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said in a statement also that it had spoken with Abbas to express Madrid's support, and he called the visa decision unjust. Britain, France, and Germany urged Iran at the United Nations to meet 3 requirements for the threat of reimposing UN sanctions could be delayed to allow space for talks on a deal to address their concerns about Tehran's nuclear program. UN envoys for 3 countries known as the E3, they offered a delay to reinstating sanctions for up to 6 months if Iran restored access for UN nuclear inspectors, and that addressed concerns about its stock of enriched uranium and engaged in talks with the US. In response, Iran's UN ambassador Amir Ervani, he said the E3 offer was full of unrealistic preconditions. Welcome back. Time to take a quick look over the economy. Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources Karim Badawi witnessed the signing of 4 new agreements with international firms worth more than $340 million to explore oil and gas in the Mediterranean and Nile Delta. The first deal with oil giant Shell is worth $129 million and covers 3 wells in the Mediterranean Mernith offshore area. Italy's Eni also signed a $100 million agreement to drill 3 wells in the Eastport side offshore block. The third agreement, worth $109 million, went to Aquarius Energy to operate North Damietta offshore area. The ministry also announced a $14 million deal with the Russian oil giant to drill 4 wells of the onshore North Al-Khatabah block in the Nile Delta. The new agreement signed by Egyptian Natural Gas Holding Company as part of the Ministry of Petroleum strategy to intensify efforts and activate increased gas to oil exploitations and also to boost production. And that is the English News Bulletin for now. Thank you for joining us.